Will there be a housing bubble in 2021? If you look at the most active real estate videos on YouTube, you'll find that the forecast for the next housing bubble is very popular. Is there a bubble approaching, or is it just sensationalism that drives people to watch these so-called reports? Today we'll examine real evidence, and I will give you data that tells you everything you need to know about a housing bubble in 2021. Hi, I'm Joe Manassa, author of The Business of Getting Business and the creator of Manassa.com, where I've helped tens of thousands of people buy and sell homes. I would like to help you too. If you already are a subscriber, thank you and welcome back. If you're not a subscriber, please consider becoming one now. We offer the most thorough and accurate housing market reports on YouTube, plus answers to your real estate frequently asked questions, and we also provide virtual tours of some of the most beautiful homes in Tallahassee. Simply hit subscribe to get started and the bell so that you're the most informed buyer or seller in your next real estate transaction. Before we examine the evidence that will clue us in on the likelihood of a housing bubble in 2021, let's first define what a bubble is and how one comes about. Here is how Investopedia defines a housing bubble. A housing bubble, or real estate bubble, is a run-up in housing prices fueled by demand, speculation, and exuberant spending to the point of collapse. Housing bubbles usually start with an increase in demand in the face of limited supply, which takes a relatively extended period to replenish and increase. Speculators pour money into the market, further driving up demand. At some point, demand decreases or stagnates at the same time supply increases, resulting in a sharp drop in prices, and the bubble bursts. So that's what Investopedia says about a housing bubble. In order to simplify this definition, I want to point out that it identifies two separate types of demand, which I call organic demand and non-organic demand. Organic demand is what we consider normal home shoppers. Families moving, people buying their first home, people relocating due to a change in work, people buying a home because of a birth of a new child, people moving up, people downsizing, the normal reasons that people move and sell and buy homes. Non-organic demand is the speculative investors who buy homes not for their use, but rather for investment purposes. Investopedia points out that when speculators pour money into the market, we see increased demand. You see, non-organic demand is not real sustainable demand. These are not people who will use the home. They are just holding it with the idea that values will go up and they will sell for a profit. So, in simple terms, non-organic demand drives up prices, which causes the production of new homes to surge. When the reasons for the demand diminish or are exhausted, the production of new homes continues until the market's oversupplied. This oversupply leads to falling prices, which is the sign the bubble has burst. The bubble is the exorbitant growth of the market. The burst is the subsequent collapse that ensues. We can look to the last housing bubble to understand how the next one will form and what signs we will see to know that a burst is imminent. The last bubble began building in 2002 and was the result of a lot of factors. In order to keep this video short, let me oversimplify the reasons that caused the last housing bubble to form. Number one, the tech bubble burst in 2000. Many people who lost money in the resulting stock market crash decided to pull money from their stocks and move it to real estate because they had positive experiences in owning real estate and felt it was safe. Number two, simultaneously the Fed cut interest rates and held them down. Sound familiar? And number three, new government policies were enacted to increase the home ownership rate. The goal was to make it easier to buy a home, and it worked. These three factors combined to form an increased demand for homes in most U.S. markets. While one could argue that lowering interest rates created organic growth in the market, the other two factors clearly created non-organic, unsustainable growth. Rampant speculation by new real estate investors created an unsustainable demand for homes. They were buying to flip, meaning they were not going to use the homes, rather they were just going to make money from buying and selling them. This non-organic growth of the housing market could only last so long as investors were making money, and we saw sales surge higher than ever before. As you'll see in a graph later in this video, home sales were higher in 2005 than they are today. Back in 2005, it seemed as if everybody was in the business of buying homes. But then the government programs that were created to encourage home ownership began to fail. Again, this is an oversimplification, but that stimulus did go away. As demand began to fall, builders kept building homes for what they felt would be a never-ending need for more homes. As supply increased, prices softened, and investors soon found that they could not flip homes profitably. Investors began to panic, and this flooded even more inventory into an oversupplied market. This was the bubble bursting. The bubble burst in 2006 and started the decline of the housing market that went until the bottom was reached 6 years later in 2012. So let's look at conditions today and see if we can draw upon our knowledge of the last housing bubble to see where the market sits today. While I use graphs and data from the Tallahassee real estate market, I can tell you the following report parallels just about every U.S. housing market as well as the overall U.S. housing market itself. Tallahassee is a microcosm of the housing market in the U.S. and works as a great example to study the prospects for both a local and a U.S. housing bubble in 2021. Let's start by looking at the current demand. Is it purely organic, or is there an outside influencer heightening demand? This graph shows that the number of homes sold each year from January through October. The amount of home sales happening right now shows strong demand, but not at the levels we saw as the housing bubble formed from 2004 through 2006. And consider this. Our population is 15% larger than it was back then, so one would expect to see a higher level of organic demand for homes today than we saw 15 years ago. But does that mean we are safe? Not at all, because there's an outside influencer that is having an impact on demand today. Historic low mortgage interest rates, the result of the government stepping in to stimulate the COVID-ravaged economy, have made home affordability an incredible opportunity today. People are borrowing money to buy homes at rates below 3%, and this has caused heightened demand. The graph shows that this heightened demand, though, is not unsustainable. Remember, our population has grown 15% since 2005, and our sales numbers are still below those from 2005. But we need to dig deeper. This graph shows the supply of homes for sale in Tallahassee over time. The real supply is shown in red, while the relative supply, or months of supply of homes, is shown in blue. This graph immediately shows a very different image than what we saw in 2006. The supply of homes for sale is not rising. Actually, it's falling. The blue lines in this graph measure the supply of homes relative to the current rate of demand, and we see that there are only 3.4 months of supply of homes for sale right now. This is about 1/4 of what it was after the housing bubble burst. So instead of seeing a housing bubble ready to burst, we're actually seeing the signs one would expect to see several years prior to the formation of a housing bubble. We see heightened demand and falling supply. For there to be a bubble, we'll need to see home builders come in and start building homes at unsustainable rates. That's clearly not happening. This graph shows new construction activity in Tallahassee for the past 30 years. We saw 140 new homes permitted per month as the housing bubble crested in 2006, yet today we're only seeing about 50 per month. In fact, the average number in the 90s was closer to 100 per month. We are building fewer homes today than we were in any of the past healthy years of the housing market. After looking at this graph, are you concerned that builders today are building too many homes? Are we ramping up production at unsustainable levels? It certainly doesn't seem so to me. The low inventory in the market, coupled with the feverish demand fueled by low mortgage interest rates, should make you wonder, what the heck are builders doing? Why aren't they building more homes? The cost to build homes is only going higher. Existing homes are not keeping pace yet, so the market for new homes is softened by the cost to acquire them. Right now, we're seeing the average new home costs about 60% more than the average existing home. The market that so desperately needs more homes cannot afford what they cost to build, and the problem is only going to get worse. If you think the 55% growth in the minimum wage since 2005 had no influence on the rising price of new homes, then you're going to be blown away by how costs rise now going forward. Couple rising wages with the increased cost of land development and the scarcity of land, and it won't be long before a new construction starter home will cost more than $500,000 in Tallahassee. I expect to see this as a reality no later than 2025. Right now, the median home price in Tallahassee is about $215,000, while the median new home is $300,000. Considering that just 20% of Tallahasseans who purchased homes this year spent $300,000 or more, you can see why builders are not building. They cannot build a home at a price that most buyers can afford. Here's the truth about the housing bubble in 2021. It will not happen. It cannot happen. It is possible that another housing bubble could occur in the future, but it certainly won't happen in 2021. There's no reason to believe that builders will be able to oversupply the market in the near future. I do expect to see demand decline when mortgage interest rates rise, but will rates rise significantly in 2021? I doubt it, but no matter how fast they move, it would not put the market in a bubble. In fact, I suspect that the Fed will find itself in a quandary in 2021. The Fed will want to keep rates low to stimulate the ailing economy, but it will want to increase rates to rein in the housing market and the hyper rate of real estate appreciation. If rates do move up, they will most likely do so conservatively, as I cannot imagine our fragile economy handling much in that regard. Regardless, we should expect to see inventory shortages exist through all of 2021. This is the complete opposite of a housing bubble. The shortages will continue well into 2022. 2022 is still far enough out that there are other factors that could push the market into harm's way, but it just does not seem like we should be concerned today with overbuilding the market. The only concern for the housing market is the slowdown that will naturally occur as mortgage interest rates move to more normal levels. This still will not create a housing bubble in 2021, as the supply side of the market has been ignored for far too many years, and today's demand is consistent with the organic needs of our growing population. We need more homes to cover the slow population growth that continues in Tallahassee, and a housing bubble requires the supply side to explode as demand diminishes. Short of a major economic change, like the state moving its government outside of Tallahassee, there is no housing bubble on the visible horizon, and certainly not in 2021. Would you like more information on what's going on in the Tallahassee real estate market? I've created a playlist of our recent housing market reports that you can view by clicking on the box on the top left of your screen. If you'd like to see our top tips for home buyers, just click on the box below it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss anything.